Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Today we have someone who's become a fast friend joining the show again. Mark Lucas is the Executive Vice President of the Article 3 Project. He's with us today to talk all things related to the confirmation process for Trump's nominees, and we are really looking forward to getting into that discussion with you, Mark. Before we go there, let me read the scripture of the day. It is Psalm chapter 94, verses 19 to 23. And it says, "Whenever my busy thoughts were out of control, the soothing comfort of your presence calmed me down and overwhelmed me with delight. It's obvious to all, you will have nothing to do with corrupt rulers who pass laws that empower evil and defeat what is right, for they gang up against the lovers of righteousness and condemn the innocent to death. But I know that all their evil plans will boomerang back onto them. Every plot they hatch will simply seal their own doom. For you, my God, you will destroy them, giving them what they deserve. You are my true tower of strength, my safe place, my hideout, and my true shelter." And you have to love how David is just so honest and bold in prayer. He prays what many of us are just too religious to pray. But I think this is a model for us in how to pray that evil is defeated in our communities, in our state, and in our nation. And I believe this is a time when we're starting to see the fruit of prayer for our nation. Of course, most evidently with the decisive election of President Trump. And it's not time to hit the brakes on advocacy, and it's not time to hit the brakes on prayer. We need to hit our foot on the gas in prayer, covering President Trump and his team continually. And we need to ask for the Lord's righteous judgment on those who are governing and legislating evil. Let's pray that, of course, they take their last moments before justice comes to turn to the Lord. The Lord wishes that none should perish, but we can't sacrifice the future generations waiting on them. They answer to the Lord just like we do, and we all have a part to play in ensuring that justice and righteousness are reestablished in this nation.
And our part to play right now, Danielle, is, as you said, to amp it up, to keep
That's
up
right.
our prayer, and to keep up our actions
Hmm.
that are motivated by those prayers. There are a lot of people. We had a guest on recently who cautioned against, sitting back and resting on our laurels and persisting in this state of euphoria that Trump won. No, that's when the enemy comes back in even stronger. So we have to continue forward, continue vigilant,
Yeah.
even well after hopefully all of Trump's nominees are confirmed. Um, Mark Lucas, as you said, is our guest today. Mark has been on the show before. Mark, what a pleasure to have you with us, sir.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And I love how every time we get together, we start in prayer and we start with a scripture reading. So no matter how good or bad we do on this podcast today, we can at least say that we started out well.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly. Yes. We
How we
started
end
off well.
is
Yes.
to be determined.
It's to be determined. Mark, where are we? We know that you are knee deep in this. Where are we in the confirmation process now? Some of our listeners may not be fully aware of how the Senate does this. We know the Senate will be sworn in January. What do we expect as far as the process before the Senate with these nominees?
Well, President Trump is off to a very fast start. He's been able to name his cabinet secretaries early, and it's really put the left and the media apparatus on their heels. He just makes announcement after announcement on Truth Social, and it's really been a breakneck pace. And so I've been helping my good friend Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense, but the Article 3 Project has also been helping Kash Patel. And since they named these two outstanding individuals, the Article 3 Project, with great help of grassroots activists all across the country, have been able to recruit 20,000 activists to take over 50,000 actions. So that means senators all across the country have received 50,000 messages in support of Kash Patel and of Pete Hegseth. If we take a look at the announcement of Kash Patel, you would have thought that he was dead on arrival.
Yeah.
If you would have read the media narratives, it looked like he had no chance. Well, my good friend and founder of the Article 3 Project, Mike Davis, quickly went on a media spree. And also we launched our grassroots activity. And Kash Patel has gone from DOA to looking like he's going to be swiftly confirmed. And that's just a testament to the grassroots. We understand that our grassroots activists for A3P, they don't stop caring about politics after the election. They want to be engaged in their country every day. And oftentimes I tell people the most important work that you can do in politics as a grassroots volunteer is the day after the election.
Yeah.
A lot of people are celebrating. Political operatives are packing up and going home. They're leaving these critical swing states. But our activists, they want to remain committed. And it's important to remind these people who were just elected in a historic landslide for President Trump that we will hold them accountable and that we want to ensure that they deliver on those campaign promises.
So right now, Mark, the meetings on the Hill are really just shoring up the votes, and then the vote will ultimately take place in January under the leadership of Senator Thune.
That's right. So the U.S. Senate has the advise and consent portion of this responsibility. The president names and the Senate will advise and consent on those nominees. And we believe that due to President Trump's historic election victory, he has a mandate.
Yeah.
And also, we as grassroots volunteers all across the country that helped deliver that victory for President Trump, we have a mandate.
Yeah.
So as these nominees are meeting with U.S. senators, we're also patching people into those offices. The Article 3 Project Action Center, which you can leverage at a3paction.com, can connect you with those senators via phone, via social media, or email. So we're also helping during this process to let these U.S. senators know that we support Kash Patel. We support Pete Hegseth. And that's been very helpful during this process. I'll talk a little bit about Pete Hegseth. Last week, it looked like his nomination was in peril. And
Yeah.
Pete really delivered last week. The Article 3 Project also helped with our grassroots activity. But Pete was an incredible advocate for veterans, for this new direction at the Department of Defense. He quickly went on the offensive in those interviews, in the hallways of the Senate offices, really making the case. And his one-on-one meetings with these senators have gone very, very well. Pete's optimistic. I'm optimistic. The tide has definitely turned. And I look forward to Pete Hegseth being confirmed in the United States Senate in January.
Yeah, he had an important interview with Megyn Kelly last week, and I thought he hit it out of the park. What I have always liked Pete. I mean, it's not like I know him personally, but I've seen him on Fox. And what I love about him is the fact that he's obviously a patriot, and he's just generally a very likable guy. He looks like Mr. All-American, but he's so open about his past, and he credits Jesus and his wife, Jen, for turning his life around. And he's a story of repentance and redemption. And he does that every day, very openly. And I have to commend him so much for that. And one thing that Chris and I have talked about since we came together as co-hosts and partners is, if there's no room for redemption in America, what are we even doing? What are we even doing? And like you said, he also did a great job of putting the media in its place. He said, I don't answer to you. I answer to President Trump. I answer to the senators who have hopefully some very thoughtful questions for me, but I don't answer to you, media. This is not, my confirmation is not going to happen in the media. And okay, so I kind of want to get to a little bit closer to home with you, Mark. So it seems that Senators Joni Ernst and I believe Lindsey Graham are the ones that are the outliers. And her social media readout from their meeting on Friday seemed pretty non-committal. I have the quote here. It says, Pete Hegseth and I will continue our constructive conversations As we move forward together in this process, we plan to meet again next week. At a minimum, we agree that he deserves the opportunity to lay out his vision for our warfighters at a fair hearing. Now, we know you're from Iowa. Joni Ernst is one of your senators. What kind of pressure have you been able to exert on her office in these last 2-3 weeks?
I've known Joni Ernst for a very long time. We served together in the Iowa Army National Guard, and she was a colonel. She was a battalion commander. She was a strong leader in Iowa, but she also has a very personal story when it comes to sexual assault. She's a victim of sexual assault, and one of her biggest priorities as a United States Senator has been what we call the SHARP program in the Army, and that's sexual harassment and assault response and prevention. So this is very close to her. So I've extended her a whole lot of grace as she's worked through this. And when she deals with these type of matters, with accusations of sexual assault, she takes them very seriously. And we saw that during the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation, but she ultimately voted for Brett Kavanaugh. And I was telling people in Iowa and also people all across the country, like on Steve Bannon's War Room, that I ultimately believe that Joni Ernst was going to get to a yes. I understand that the grassroots are passionate. We have a mandate. There's so much work that needs to be done. But the Article 3 project, we do respect the Senate's advice and consent process. And Mike Davis knows this very well. He's worked confirmations from Neil Gorsuch to Brett Kavanaugh. He helped confirm a record number of judges in President Trump's first term. So we have a deep respect for the United States Senate as an institution. We respect the roles of United States senators. And I was very pleased to see Joni's comments yesterday. It looks like she's going to be supporting Pete Hegseth, and she said that she would support him through this process.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I too feel that she's warming up to Pete, and I'm certainly cautiously optimistic that she'll be a yes vote, in the final analysis as well. I want to ask you about one issue that's come up, Mark, regarding Pete. This allegation of financial mismanagement when he was the head of Concerned Veterans for America. You succeeded him in that position. Is that right? Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. Talk about those allegations. No one is in a better position to discuss the merits of those allegations. I did see a letter from Concerned Veterans for America disputing that. But talk about that and see what we can do to lay that to rest.
Yes, there was a New Yorker article that was totally sourced by anonymous people. Nobody that made these accusations against Pete Hegseth were willing to go on the record. And so Pete was the founder and the leader of Concerned Veterans for America. He built an incredible team. He had an outstanding strategy. And you're right, I succeeded him and was the executive director of Concerned Veterans for America. And if you read the media reports, you would think that Pete Hegseth left me a train wreck at CVA, but it was the complete opposite. He left me a world-class organization. I inherited and kept his executive team, which was outstanding. I inherited his strategy. He literally wrote the book on how to reform the VA. This was the Fixing Veterans Healthcare Task Force report. I took that report into the Oval Office with President Trump, and I was able to brief the president on what we believed had to happen to reform the VA. And it was all Pete Hegseth's plan. And before I started my comments and went into the policy discussion with President Trump, I told him that Pete was my predecessor, and the president's eyes lit up. He said, "You know Pete Hegseth? I love Pete Hegseth. I wanted to hire him, but my staff told me he'd be better for us on Fox News." And so that was a great way to start the meeting. So the president and I built that rapport based off of Pete Hegseth and his vision. And so what Pete was able to do was build this grassroots army all across the country. He would also fly veterans on the Capitol Hill and brief members of Congress on what reforms we need to do at the VA. And just real quickly, there's two big things. There's accountability, and it was choice in healthcare. So Pete was able to help me and President Trump pass two of the most historic reforms in the VA. The VA Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act of 2017. This would allow us to fire bad VA employees. And it would also allow us to protect good VA employees who want to come forward as whistleblowers. So that happened in 2017, early in Trump's term. It was one of his biggest policy accomplishments. Then the next year, we're able to pass the Mission Act, which allows veterans their choice in healthcare. So if you're happy with the VA, you can continue to go there. But as a veteran, if you have to travel 200 miles and you weren't happy with the care that you're receiving, you can literally drive across town and receive care at a private healthcare facility. So those two monumental policy victories that CVA and President Trump was able to accomplish, it wouldn't have been possible without Pete Hegseth. He helped me throughout the process. He's never been persona non grata. I've been very appreciative of him as a friend. And if you talk to CVA employees, past and present, they all love Pete Hegseth.
Well, tell him he's welcome to come on the show anytime, Mark.
Absolutely.
We want him.
Another allegation, or another couple of allegations that came up were that he was drinking on the job, and of course concerns about his past infidelity. And I thought he did a great job of addressing both of those head on in his interview with Megyn Kelly. And if people haven't listened to that, they absolutely owe it to themselves to get some insight into Pete Hegseth by watching that interview, which I thought he just handled very, very masterfully. But what I wanted to pull out of that is that Mike Davis did something that was so brilliant yesterday, and I have to address it. And he, in an interview with Politico, he was quoted saying, "The Article 3 project is very excited about this new standard that drinking and womanizing is disqualifying for public service. I'm very happy to hire investigators for senators and use that standard." So is Mike having the time of his life right now? Because it sure looks like it from the outside. And what's his confidence level on Pete, Cash, and the other nominees that y'all are following as well?
Well, Mike Davis and I have been friends since college, and I can tell you that he is in his element. When it comes to Senate confirmations, there's nobody that understands that process better than Mike Davis in the Article 3 project. And that Politico report sure turned a lot of heads on Capitol Hill. And we noticed that some people changed their tune pretty quickly when Mike issued that warning. But he's absolutely true. The greater point is, if you are a United States senator and you're trying to bring up all these past allegations on alcohol and the way that you've conducted yourselves in personal relationships, if you want to try to enforce that standard, you shouldn't live in a glass house. And that really got people's attention. But in order to be confirmed by the United States Senate, you have to be a qualified nominee. And alcohol usage and your marital history, those are not disqualifying points in a confirmation, right? So these false allegations, these false rape accusations, if these people want to come forward, they can, and they can swear under oath during the confirmation process in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee. I've went on record in my support of Pete Hegseth, and I volunteered to report to the Senate, to raise my right hand under oath, and to talk about my experience with Pete Hegseth. And there's also other members of CVA, other members in the military that serve with Pete. We love him. We know that he is the perfect guy for this job, and we're willing to put our name on this, and we're willing to swear under oath at risk of perjury during the confirmation process.
And just one more thing before you go there, Chris. The beautiful thing about Mike saying it is that it does terrify people because they know he means it, right? There's a lot of people that could say that and it would just be a quote, and it wouldn't instill the same kind of fear. But the thought of PIs crawling across the Senate is just
exactly.
It's so exceptional.
Yeah. And Mark, you talk about raising your right hand and testifying to the character of Pete Hegseth or any other nominee for that matter. One of the things that I notice about all these allegations against not just Pete, but against the other nominees, they're always anonymous. None of these people have the conviction or the courage to come forward, say who they are, and and testify under oath, or even, claim their own comments. And I just find that so extraordinarily weak. I know you were taught, as I was and Danielle was, if you feel strongly about something and you feel like there's something so fundamental that it needs to get out there and it is disqualifying, why would you not put your name behind it? Why would you not say who you are and have the courage of your convictions? And to me, that is real evidence of the weakness and the ultimate baselessness of most of these allegations. The fact that none of these people are willing to come forward and say who they are.
And these anonymous sources in these politically motivated stories, it's a part of the strategy for the Democrats. They know that these accusations will not hold up during a Senate confirmation process. So they're trying to kill some of these nominees before they even get started.
Yeah, before they even get there. Exactly. Well, Trump clearly has a mandate here, as you said at the outset, an overwhelming presidential victory. Um, which of his nominees, of all the ones that he's either nominated or is considering, scares the deep state the most in your view?
Kash Patel. Now, he's going to be an incredible FBI director. Mike Davis has highlighted all across this last year of the gross abuse of the Department of Justice. Mike has highlighted how the Department of Justice has weaponized the intelligence community. We have judges who have weaponized the rule of law. They've actually just completely ignored it. And so there's a lot of people that we believe have been involved in a criminal conspiracy against the rights of President Trump. Those are serious crimes. And so the FBI and under Kash Patel is going to be able to investigate these matters, along with the Attorney General, the nominee of Pam Bondi. So I believe that Kash Patel has scared people the most. Our grassroots activity for Kash Patel, we were able to lob in 20,000 messages to Senate offices in the first 72 hours. It was incredible. One of the largest grassroots responses we've ever seen in the history of the Article 3 project.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
hopefully,
incredible.
It is incredible. Hopefully that will allow both of the senators from Louisiana to at some point go on record publicly in support of Trump's nominees, which they have not done as of yet. But let me ask you about more specifically about the role of the Senate in all of this, Mark. Advise and consent. My understanding from the Constitution is that the Senate needs to look at the nominees, and if they're facially qualified, as long as they're not criminally compromised, the Senate's role is to indulge the president's prerogative, because it is his prerogative to get his cabinet appointees through. Are you expecting, just vitriol among Democrats in the Senate? Are you expecting them to pull out all the stops in order to sabotage these nominees in the hearing process?
I do. And really, the only tactic they have is obstruction. And we saw that during the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation. But, the Article 3 project has done a really good job of not allowing a Brett Kavanaugh 2.0 type of situation in this next Congress. The people I'm most worried about are Republicans, quite frankly. I understand that Democrats are always going to obstruct. I am worried about some Republicans, but I ultimately believe after last week, seeing how Pete Hegseth has performed, that we're going to have a lot of confirmations that go through successfully. I would actually expect all of Trump's nominees to be confirmed at this point. The Senate understands they're political animals. They run for election every 6 years. They understand the grassroots, especially for those guys who are in cycle. They've seen the popularity of President Trump. They're also looking at the opinion polling right now, post-election. President Trump's approval continues to be strong. People have said that they support his transition. They support his nominees. So ultimately, I believe that we're going to get through some tough weeks here with this media onslaught, but the base is going to solidify. these United States senators on the Republican side of the aisle are going to support President Trump's nominees.
And just a couple questions on that. Has Thune conveyed when he plans to start the hearings? Will they happen immediately after the swearing in of the new Senate? And then is it just a simple majority that's required for confirmation?
I do believe that Senator Thune is going to start as soon as possible, just because Trump's nominees are so popular. And also, if you look at what's going on in Syria around the world, I
Yeah.
think Pete Hegseth's confirmation needs to happen right away. I also think with the FBI and the Department of Justice to start winding down these cases, to hopefully offer pardons to the January 6th defendants. So I see that Senator Thune will most likely move quickly through it. It's got to go through the committee. Pete Hegseth's got to go through the committee hearings in the Senate Armed Services Committee. You have Pam Bondi who'll be going through the Judiciary Committee. So we'll get through those committees, and then it'll go to a floor vote.
Yeah.
And they have the prerogative to make that as fast or as slow as they want, huh?
Well, Democrats definitely want it to go slow, but President Trump is in a hurry. We've seen this since the election. He has been rapidly announcing his lower nominations as well. We're going to move quickly because there's been so much damage in the last 4 years. It's hard to believe that you could ever experience just the destruction of our border, of the economy. The American people spoke out loudly. So the United States Senate, they have some major incentives to move quickly through these nominations.
Yeah.
I pray they do.
Final question before we wrap you up here, Mark. Real accountability. One of the things that I hear from people all the time, people who are members of LeCAG, our organization, and others, is that we have these hearings before the Senate. You call in, Biden's agency appointees, and you ask them all these questions, and you berate them, you expose them, all appropriately, and yet there's never any measurable accountability. They go back, they don't suffer any consequences. Do you expect there to be real measurable accountability for all of the weaponization of the federal government that we've seen under Kash Patel?
Absolutely. Kash has been very forthright, so has President Trump, that they're going to rectify the problems of what happened over the last 4 years. And quite frankly, it has to happen. We almost lost our country. If Kamala Harris was elected as president of the United States, I don't think our republic would have been able to endure that experience. And so with the rule of law, we have to bring that back to the United States. It's one of the things that makes our government so special. It's one of the reasons why the founding fathers understood that they had to put in these protections. A limited government that's got separation of powers. We had to do that in order to protect people. And right now, there's been this presumption of guilt over the last 4 years under President Biden. We've got to return to a presumption of innocence, to a rule of law. The American people voted for it. President Trump understands he has a mandate, and there will be real accountability in 2025.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm not a popcorn eater, but I will pop everyone else popcorn because I'm so ready for this.
The designated popcorn popper.
Look, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us one more time where people can go to make sure that their senators know that they support Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth. We want to get as many advocacy items or actions taken as we possibly can between now and all the way through the finish line.
You can go to the article number 3 project.org. You can go to our action center. You can call your senator, email them, and light them up on social media. Let them know they need to support Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense, Kash Patel for FBI Director. Again, article number 3 project.org. You can always follow me on Getter, X, and Truth at Lucas, Iowa.
Great. And we'll have that all in the show notes for folks who just want to click through the link there. Mark, thank you. It's wonderful having you as always. We'll get you back sometime in January when we're really in the thick of things and you can help us wade through that as well. but we look forward to seeing this go smoothly. We will be taking the actions ourselves, and we will talk to you soon, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm trying to hit the outro. Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mark. God
Thank
bless you,
you.
sir.